Welcome to AUDL Weekly. You have discovered the show all about ultimate stories, perspectives, conversations, and more. My name is Evan Lepler, and it gives me great joy to say that we are just 2 days away from the start of the 2022 AUDL season. Friday night we launch with Atlanta at Carolina, 7 p.m. on AUDL.tv, and the season opener will be available for free for all viewers across the world. And then the full slate of AUDL.tv action the rest of the weekend, not to mention our Fox Sports 2 season premiere featuring New York and DC. That'll air late Saturday night on FS2. Very exciting weekend ahead, and we've got a really good show for you tonight to set the stage for the season. In just a little bit, I'll be joined by San Diego Growlers head coach Kevin Stuart. Later on, Adam and Daniel offer their season predictions and over-under. And then a brand new up line and out of bounds. Matt Smith has DC's Steven Wartinbee in the hot seat this week. But first, it's a beautiful day for a toss as we get you set for the Week 1 launch of the new AUDL season. You are watching AUDL Weekly on AUDL.tv, so stick around. All right, welcome back. Amidst all the exciting news on the verge of the new season, there is one change that I wanted to make sure is clear for our fans, particularly the most loyal and dedicated AUDL.tv viewers that have been the backbone of the league over the course of the past decade. So in the past, every single AUDL game was available live on AUDL.tv, except for last year's Free Friday Frisbee showcase, which was over on the DraftKings Dream Stream platform. That meant that all fans could watch our Fox Sports Game of the Week live on AUDL.tv and also on FS2 when it aired on Wednesday nights. This year, the AUDL will have its Fox Sports Game of the Week airing on Saturday nights, which is great. Sometimes we'll be live on FS2, which is an awesome accomplishment for the league, and hopefully we'll bring in many new fans. Other times, including this week when we've got New York and DC, will air on Saturday night, but not live. So it'll be tape delayed and on the schedule for later in the evening. I believe this week we're slated to be on at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, which, yes, I understand that's late for East Coast viewers. Hopefully you can set the DVR, have it ready to watch first thing Sunday morning, if like me, you don't stay up perhaps quite as late as maybe you used to. The big change, though, is that these FS2 games becoming exclusive to Fox Sports in the United States. That means US viewers will not be able to concurrently watch them live on AUDL.tv. And I am fully prepared for folks to be disappointed in this news. It's a bit of a bummer in the short term. However, I hope you will join me in looking at the bigger picture here. The AUDL's future could very well tie into the quality of its television deal. And that could become an avenue for things like players making more money, getting better time slots in the future, more exposure, etc. So yeah, it sucks that we're not going to be live every single week and that a bunch of diehard US fans, even if they have FS2, won't be able to see the game live because it's airing on tape delay. But at the same time, I do believe that aligning with Fox Sports is important for the future of the AUDL. So I did think it was important to offer this insight before the season starts, as opposed to letting some of the most loyal fans, like yourself, not fully understand this going in and then try to tune in New York, DC live on Saturday and getting angry in the moment. Didn't want that to happen. So hope you can appreciate the big picture, even if, again, it might be disappointing and a little bit inconvenient at times when you want to see the big game live and it's airing on tape delay. Not ideal, but hopefully the road to a brighter future for everyone involved in the league. Every game will still re-air on FS2 on Wednesday nights, and the exclusivity window does expire after 30 days, so games will find their way onto the AUDL.tv archives for subscribers about a month after they happen. Okay, with that business out of the way, let's talk Ultimate. New season launches on Friday, and the San Diego Growlers are hosting the Salt Lake Shred, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 o'clock on the West Coast. I will definitely be staying up late to watch that one on AUDL.tv. After the break, Growlers head coach Kevin Stuart will join me to share his outlook for the matchup with the Shred and the season overall that's ahead. That's next as we roll along here on AUDL Weekly. On AUDL Weekly, I am delighted to welcome the head coach of the San Diego Growlers, Kevin Stuart, back to the show. Kevin, welcome back. How you doing?
Thanks, Evan. Thanks for having me on. Doing well. Getting ready for Friday night. It's going to be a fun home opener against Salt Lake.
So the Growlers are the two-time defending champs of the West Division, and you have raided the Los Angeles roster again and have added even more great players onto your team. How confident are you in this group as you head into a season where, look, you don't know what the Salt Lake Shred are going to show you on Friday night?
I feel pretty confident based on what we've been doing in practices and what we've been installing and the leadership that we have, and we do definitely have a veteran group. So it doesn't only come from Kayla and I; it comes from the top down. So I feel like this group is we're highly motivated, good leadership, and I think we're ready to rock for Friday night.
How does this team feel different than the past couple of years where you guys had strong teams as well heading into the season?
I think that veteran feel, not that we didn't have like a lot of veterans before. I mean, we've always had Steven Milardovich and Travis Dunn, and we don't have Dom this year, which is unfortunate, but we've always had that, the bottom part of the roster is kind of young and not as experienced, but we don't have that this year. We've called up a lot of guys from our practice squad over the last couple of years, and they have a lot of confidence and a lot of experience, especially last year when we were having kind of light rosters. We had to sign all of our practice players, and they got some AUDL experience, so that helped the depth there. But then bringing in Chris Mazer and Sean McDougall and, having Zach and Jeff Silverman out there, we're a bunch of KG veterans now as opposed to younger guys as we've kind of been over the first 5 years of the franchise.
So there's a great rivalry in Southern California, and a lot of the guys you mentioned have played for the Aviators and have played for the Growlers, and guys have gone back and forth. And I'm curious, is there a meeting in, December where you talk about which guys you want to raid from your rival this year? And what is the feeling when you get someone to commit? I got to imagine it's like an SEC football coach, with a recruit, like Alabama and Auburn, and Nick Saban gets the guy that was also being recruited by Auburn, and he does a big fist pump in his office. Is that at all what it's like?
I wouldn't compare myself to Nick Saban, but it's a lot of the recruiting comes from the players. Honestly, a lot of them are, they play together on the Condors, the Southern California team, which pulls talent from both the Aviators and the Growlers. And I think what it comes down to is that time in their lives, like Sean happened to move a little bit closer to San Diego, and it was kind of an even split between LA and San Diego, and I think he just had a little more of a comfort level playing with the majority of the roster that was playing with the Condors, and wanted to make that change. And I think that we also provide a pretty good environment in terms of communication of what's going to happen on game day and what's going to be going on. And I think that the players that we have create a really welcoming environment. Not that LA doesn't, but I feel like, it just was we when we do get those guys, it's obviously a huge boost for us because we're pulling from a pretty big rival. But they also have to fit in with what we want to do moving forward, and all the guys, seamlessly fit into what we're creating.
What do you envision Sean McDougall's role being with the Growlers?
right now, I hope he's, we hope that he's going to slot into the spots vacated by Lior and Pettyjohn in terms of the downfield cutting and that goal scorer type. It's going to be interesting. We've had 4 weekend practices, and so he's been able to kind of gel with Goose and Travis and Jesse a little bit. So I think that's going to just help us open up. It's going to be interesting to see how other teams defend us and what they're willing to take away. So I think that he'll allow us to be a little more dynamic, and I could also see him getting in on some D points when, if we need that little fast break option.
You mentioned Goose Helton and Travis Dunn, 2 guys whose accolades are numerous. Goose starting his 2nd decade in the AUDL, and Travis, a veteran of multiple all AUDL teams. Are those guys as good as they ever been? In what ways might they be better? And kind of what are the mindset of those 2 guys? They're both still looking for their first AUDL championship despite the division titles on their resume.
Somehow Goose never ages, and I really feel like he's getting younger. So he's as good and as strong as he's been over the last couple of years. So and Travis, similar. He's rearing and ready to go. I think that there is a definite sense that we are the roster is aging a little bit, so it's time to really make that push. And not that we probably have a few more years with it, but that window is slowly closing, but it's still open. But yeah, I think there's a little bit of we've been to championship weekend the last 2 years, and we're looking to push through. We're putting in the things that we learn each year, so we're hopeful that we can weather the West Division and get back to championship weekend and roll the dice in Madison.
Yeah, well, the road to Madison is certainly different this year compared to last year, with the West Division being a very different landscape. The Texas teams are gone. You bring in Salt Lake, who you play on Friday, and also Colorado and Portland. Is it a more difficult or an easier West Division this year, do you think?
Well, I will say that the West Division has never been easy, at least from my perspective. I know that when we came in, like the big names for the West Division were San Jose, San Francisco, Seattle. And even then, it wasn't easy for San Jose to kind of get through unscathed in the West Division when they were winning back-to-back championships. Mm-hmm. So, regardless of what others think, the West Division is always a dogfight when you're playing. I mean, we won 10 games last year, but if you look at our results, I think it was a 1 or 2 goal game going into the fourth quarter of every single opponent. So we don't take anything for granted. It's going to be tough to get through and reach that 10-win mark again. But having Dallas and Austin in last year was presented different challenges. I think that you could go both ways in terms of thinking that, having Dallas and Austin as a known entity, but also not having to go to Dallas and Austin is pretty fantastic. But now we have to go
avoid that Texas summer heat.
Yeah, that game in Austin last year was one of the hottest. I think I almost got heat stroke during it. But
now you got the altitude.
And now we have to deal with Salt Lake City and Denver, and then also go Portland and Seattle. So the new teams are going to be very good. There's no doubt in my mind. I think there's a lot of similarities with us and the 3 franchises. It's just, winning an AUDL game, no matter who you're playing against, is very difficult. So we are not taking anything for granted, and we're ready for it. It's we're going to get everyone's best punch. We're the division champs, so we got to be ready and be able to adapt.
So I know you're not looking to give any advice to your first-year franchises in your division or other first-year coaches in the league. However, you're entering your 7th year as the head coach of the Growlers. You've been at the helm since 2015 when the franchise joined the West. There are a lot of new coaches around the league that don't know what they don't know yet. And I'm sure you felt that way early on in terms of roster management, game management, season to season. The AUDL is a different venture. What are the biggest things that you know now that maybe you didn't know early on in terms of managing and succeeding in the AUDL?
I don't want to help those guys very much. I will say, get yourself a quality co-head coach, because Kayla does put in a significant amount of work, and she does help me manage the week to week. I'm still learning stuff even in the 7th year. It's there are little nuances that go on week to week, day to day. But I guess if I had to help them at all, I would say game management is going to be the biggest. That's the biggest surprise, almost slap in the face I had for the first 2 years. It's just how quickly everything happens, and how much time you realize you don't have when you're trying to get a line on or a set in and understand what the other team is doing. And before you know it, it's halftime, and then you're having to make an adjustment, and you got like 8 minutes to talk to your team, and your mind is racing. So it's a lot. It's not anything like a club or a USA Ultimate game. It's fast paced. You have to be really prepared and think about all the different scenarios that you could see in game, and then also have a lot of good people around you that can help you analyze what's going on field. And I've been lucky enough over the last 4 years to have those smart players and coaches to help kind of analyze what's going on. And also, and it's hard for me to do it, keep your cool.
What? You occasionally get a little hot tempered on the sidelines? I don't believe it.
I've been known to get emotional. I prefer not to say hot tempered.
That just means you care.
That just means I care a little bit too much sometimes.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, Kevin Stuart, I really can't wait to tune in on Friday night after I call the Atlanta-Carolina game, and I will be glued to the computer or the TV screen if I can get it hooked up to see you guys debut 2022 and see the Salt Lake Shred for the first time. It's going to be a fun weekend in the AUDL. Thanks so much for taking 10-12 minutes with me here today, and best of luck this weekend. Look forward to seeing you during the season.
No problem, Evan. Talk to you later.
Kevin Stuart, head coach of the San Diego Growlers, here on AUDL Weekly. Adam and Daniel are coming up next after this. Back on AUDL Weekly with Daniel Cohen and Adam Ruffner, the co-hosts of the Swing Pass podcast. They've been doing hours on each division in the league. It's been fun to listen to as we get ready for the start of the season. Gentlemen, no, it's a busy week. Appreciate you squeezing us in here on Weekly. Let's jump right in with tonight's first over-under topic. Adam, we'll start with you first. Over-under. 4.5 teams will make the 2022 playoffs that did not make the 2021 playoffs.
So before I get to my answer, let's just go over a little bit of the math here with realignment and the divisional playoff seeding. You've got 3 playoff seeds in the East, Central, and West divisions and 2 in the South. Because of the 2021 format with the gigantic Atlanta division and the Canadian teams being split off for their round-robin tournament, you're just going to have 4 new teams in the fold in 2022 already. So what you're essentially asking us is, will there be an additional one more playoff team that's coming into the fold in 2022? I'm going to say no. I think that there will only be 4 teams because of how the seeding is going to break out. I think in the West, you're going to see a return from San Diego, and I think Portland and Colorado right now are my favorites to make it into those 2 and 3 seeds, despite being expansion teams. I think in the Central, you're going to see Chicago and Minnesota back in there. And right now, I'm going to be picking Madison. And then I think in the East, you're going to see a return of DC and New York, surprise, surprise, along with Boston. And in the South, it's going to be Atlanta and Carolina. With all due respect to Dallas and Austin and their talents, there's just too much of a bottleneck in that division with the seeding. So I'm going to take the under. I think there's only going to be 4 new teams to the playoff fold in 2022.
Daniel?
So to sort of recontextualize it, another thing you're asking is basically, will one of San Diego, Chicago, Minnesota, DC, New York, Atlanta, Carolina, will one of those 7 teams not make the playoffs this year? I think of those 7, Chicago probably has the best chance of not making it, but I still think Chicago is a top 3 team in the Central. I agree with Adam. I think it will be probably Chicago, Minnesota, Madison in that division. The other teams are just, to me, such a clear top tier of their respective divisions that I really don't see any of them not making it. So I'm going to agree. I will take the under. Exactly 4 new teams will be in the playoffs this year.
Fair enough. I appreciate the context. You guys put it in really good terms for folks to understand. Daniel, we'll come to you first with topic number 2. 1.5 new teams at 2022 championship weekend. By new, I mean teams that obviously didn't make championship weekend last year. Over under 1.5 new teams at this year's championship weekend. Daniel?
This is tough. I think it is time for Minnesota to finally get in for the Central Division. They've had a different division champion each of the last 3 seasons, Madison, then Indy, and Chicago last season. Minnesota was so close to making it last year. I think they finally have the talent to push them over the top. As far as the other 3 divisions, as much as I really want to pick DC to make it in over New York, I still feel like New York and Carolina, just until Atlanta and DC prove that they can pull out huge wins late in the season in the playoffs when they really matter, I gotta stick with New York and Carolina, and I'm definitely gonna stick with San Diego, who has just been the king of the West the past 2 seasons. So I'm taking the slight under. There will be 1 new championship weekend team in 2022.
Adam, what'd you think?
With their additions out in San Diego, I don't see them slipping at all in the West. In the East, even with DC's rise, it does feel like New York still has position on that throne, as they have ever since 2018. And I think in the South, Carolina is just on too much of an upswing with all their young talent. The idea of a championship hangover for this Flyers team frankly feels silly, given the kinds of names and players that they have, both offensively and defensively, and the coaching staff. And so I gotta agree with Daniel here. I just think that Minnesota and the Central are probably the most likely possibility for an overturning, but otherwise it feels like a traditional power year. Now, the thing is that whenever we say stuff like this in the preseason, we all get a bunch of tars and feather on us by like 5 weeks in. So I'm fully expecting to eat crow on this in, 3 weeks. Probably about 3 weeks.
Sounds about right.
But you're both going under. You're both going under 1.5.
Yeah.
Saying there's going to be a familiar feel to championship weekend in Madison this August.
I think so.
All righty. Topic number 3. Let's talk about the West Division a little bit, because San Diego is the presumptive favorite. But to me, this feels like a very balanced division from top to bottom. Even the teams at the bottom, I feel like, can compete with the teams at the top. There has never been a West Division champion that has failed to win double-digit games in the history of the division from 2014 to 2021. So, over-under 9.5 regular season wins for the 2022 West Division champion, whoever it is. Adam, we'll come to you first.
It'll be the Growlers, but I'm going to take the under. I think this is one of the most elevated West Division talent pools we've ever seen. It has the most teams ever, and I think along with that, the travel schedule is just going to be brutal. I think both of the teams at elevation in Salt Lake and Colorado are really going to become tough atmospheres to play in, both because of their crowd and literally because of the amount of oxygen content in the air. I think it's going to be really hard to run with those athletic looking teams at elevation when you're going on the road. As we saw last year with San Diego, they escaped by the skin of their teeth more than a few times throughout their 10-win season in 2021, and I just don't know if there's the same margin for closeness this year, and I kind of expect a little bit of a regression just in terms of winning close games. It felt like they won every close game that they were a part of last season, and it feels like they might just drop a couple of those as the expansion teams join the fold and just the general talent pool rises. So I think San Diego at 9 wins is very, very probable.
Daniel.
I go back and forth on the whole closing out really tight wins and the sustainability of that, because we've talked about it before with Carolina too. Like the amount of close games they play, I tend to agree with you that they're sort of bound to start losing some of those. But I don't know, San Diego has gotten to 10 wins each of the last 2 seasons, despite playing so many of those close games and looking really tight in a lot of matchups in the West. I think I'm going to take the over. I'm going to say they're going to do it again. They're going to get to 10 wins. I think where I side with San Diego is the fact that I think their team has gotten better this offseason with the additions of those key aviators from the 2018 championship weekend game, Sean McDougal, Chris Mazer, Tyler Bacon. And so like with those additions, plus the fact that these expansion teams are probably the most likely to challenge San Diego consistently this season, they're still expansion teams though, and I think San Diego, with as much veterans as they have, and they're a well-coached team, I think they're gonna have that AUDL edge that just might take a little bit of getting used to from the expansion team. So I'm gonna give San Diego the edge. I don't think they're gonna be perfect, but I do think they're gonna hit 10 wins.
Interesting. We will see. Let's move on to topic number 4, focusing in on this weekend with a bit of a twist. Daniel, over under 1.5 overtime games in the AUDL on this first weekend of the 2022 regular season. And you get bonus points for identifying which games, if any, might go OT.
I'm pretty sure you asked this last year, and I want to say I said there'd be like 1. I think I said there'd be 1, and there were 2. It was the Minnesota-Madison game and the Atlanta-Carolina game from last season, week 1. I'm taking the over this year. I want to root for overtime games, but there really are a lot of really what I think should be close matchups heading into this first week. You have another Atlanta-Carolina game. You got a New York DC. Both those games were decided by just a goal in week 1 of 2021. You have Philly and Boston. I could see that game being super close. Philly beat Boston last time they played in Boston by, I believe, a goal as well. Pittsburgh, Detroit, another contender. Austin and Dallas. I feel like those games were almost always decided by a goal last year.
You're not
if you're gonna make me pick
every game.
I know. If you're gonna make it, I wanted to lay out.
What are you doing?
Well, I wanted to lay out all the possibilities, which is why I'm confident saying over.
That's the entire week 1 schedule. That is the entire week 1 schedule.
Ready? I'm gonna say our two featured games this week, both Atlanta and Carolina and New York DC, are going to go to overtime.
All right.
Adam?
New York DC feels like they go to overtime basically every single time they play, so I feel like that's almost a lock to go to overtime. I think the other game that is most likely to go to it is Detroit-Pittsburgh. I just think there's so many interesting storylines going into that game. You have Detroit trying to break their 50-game winning streak. You have a Pittsburgh team that is very solidified and not having that happen. You have Max Shepard, who loves playing against Detroit. I think that they might have a little trouble also covering CJ Colicchio. I just think Detroit-Pittsburgh's kind of like the spicy undercard of the week 1 slate.
Fair enough. Adam, you misspoke slightly when you characterized Detroit's 50-game streak as a winning streak, as opposed to a losing streak.
Not one of those.
Just a minor error.
They're about to turn things around. They're about to go on a 50-game winning streak to balance everything.
You heard it here first.
What a story. What a story that would be. All right. Over under 100% over for this preseason episode. Next time we chat, we'll have real games to break down and analyze and discuss. Look forward to the weekend. Daniel and Adam, thank you guys so much. Coming up on AUDL Weekly, Matt Smith has an all-new Upland Out of Bounds. But first, what a treat. It's a brand new Cohen's Cut.
What's up, AUDL fans? Daniel Cohen here with this week's Cohen's Cut.
Today we're going to be looking at the DC Breeze backfield and their ability to move the disc seamlessly between handlers. So the Breeze offense was dominant in 2021 with their possession-based small ball approach that featured 3 or 4 handlers carrying the load on each possession. With quick disc movement and great patience, the group was especially efficient in the red zone, converting on more than 82% of their red zone possessions, good for 3rd best in the league. In this sequence, the Breeze handler set consists of Johnny Malks, Rowan McDonald, Gus Norbaum, and Jacques Nissen. As the spacing begins to clog near the far hash, Malks turns his horizontal cut into a clear out as Rowan swings the disc towards the middle of the field. They want to reverse the field here, so Nissen is already cutting to get the continuation swing from Norbaum before Rowan even releases the disc. Anticipating the next throw before it goes up is a key fundamental of this quick motion offense. Now after Norbaum gets the disc to Nissen, he's going to immediately follow his throw to try getting the disc back. Another big part of this small ball offense is using throw-and-goes to keep the handler defenders off balance and to keep the disc moving. Here, Norbaum's throw-and-go forces a handler switch, which ultimately works to DC's advantage. See, instead of the throw going back to Norbaum towards the near sideline, the switch puts Norbaum's defender on his outside hip, so Norbaum turns in towards the middle of the field to counter the switch and still get the disc back from Nissen. Meanwhile, Johnny Malks has every intention of making his way back towards the disc after his initial clear out. He's watching the offense develop, waiting for that opening to come back in. This is that opening, so he times his in-cut perfectly to receive an immediate dump from Norbaum with horizontal momentum. And this momentum gives him and the offense an open throw to the near side of the end zone, where he immediately hits Joe Richards for the Breeze goal. Thanks for watching, and be sure to join me next time for another Cohen's Cut.
What's up, AUDL world, and welcome to what I am deeming the first regular season episode of Upline and Out of Bounds. I am super excited to be joined with second-year player out of DC, Mr. Steven Wartinbee. How's it going, Steven?
Hey, Matt. It's awesome. Good to be here.
Happy to hear it. Are you getting excited to play the New York Empire again in your Week 1 matchup?
Couldn't be more excited. Had the chance to play in the exhibition down at TEP, and given the way that one ended, really excited for Week 1.
Absolutely. I'm excited to watch that game and maybe a little bit of a revenge game for DC. But we are going to jump right into this introduction so the audience can get to know you a little bit. So first question here is hometown.
I grew up in Glendale, which is a suburb about just northeast of LA.
Very cool. Age?
27.
Did you attend college? If so, where and what degree did you obtain?
I graduated from Georgetown in 2015 with a degree in government.
Very cool. Switching over to Ultimate, current position on the field?
I'm an offensive hybrid for the Breeze.
Hey, love the O-line guys, other O-line guys. Why don't you fill us in on your Ultimate origin story?
Sure. So I really didn't have a clue what the sport was coming to Georgetown. Went to the student activities fair my, second week of my fall semester, and had a couple guys behind the Ultimate table yell, I think it was, "Hey, tall guy, get over here," or something, and put my name down thinking it was just going to be tossing on the quad because I'd seen him already. And then was honestly pretty shocked to get an email saying, "Bring cleats, first practice." It's what am I getting myself into? And then 10 years later, it's 90% of what I do with my time.
Yeah, that's awesome. A tale as old as time, or at least as old as College Ultimate. I share a similar origin story as well, so very cool to hear. Yeah, so from the intramural sign-up table all the way to the pros, last one here, what has been your favorite AUDL moment so far?
So far, probably have to be week 2 last year, going down to Raleigh. Super tight game against an awesome team, and a bit of a heart and mouth moment toward the end there, but we're able to scrape away the win, and huge relief at the end of that game. Awesome to be part of.
Yeah, that was a great game, and Yeah, I'm always rooting for a Raleigh loss, so happy to see y'all get that done. All right, well, now that we know you a little better, we're going to jump into today's game, which is GOATs. A classic here. It is greatest of all time, so I'm going to give you a subject, person, place, thing, whatever, and you're going to tell me what is the greatest of all time in that category and why. So, first one here. I hear that you are a disc golf nut. So, greatest of all time disc golf course that you have played.
Ooh, it's a toss-up between Lake Marshall, about 2 hours southeast of me here, but I think number one would have to be Milo MacGyver outside of Portland, Oregon. Absolutely gorgeous, stunning views in a state park, and definitely number one, I think.
All right, West Coasters, get out there. Next topic here. Greatest of all time hiking trail that you have hiked.
Appalachian Trail, no doubt. We try to think of a specific section, but I've been all up and down within a few hours of DC, and really, if I have a choice, I'm going on the AT.
Very cool. I have been to the start and the finish and not much in between, but an amazing trail from what I have seen. All right, moving on here. This one might be a little bit of a toss-up, but greatest of all time non-alcoholic beer.
You've done your background research, so that's got to be Athletic Brewing. My favorite would be the Trailblazer. Big fan.
Absolutely. Is there a sponsor code people can or something like that? I know you're affiliated with them. Give them a shout out.
So I'm an ABC ambassador, have been for a little over a year now. You can check them out at athleticbrewing.com, and sponsored code is StevenW20 if you want 20% off your first order.
Hey, there we go. Love to see it. All right, back into another, we'll go sports direction here. Greatest of all time sports documentary.
Sports documentary. Without thinking too hard about it, I would say that one that I've watched 2 or 3 times was the Ronaldo biopic that came out a handful of years ago. I've been a big fan of him since high school, and so that was definitely a bit of a fanboy pick.
All right. I can't say I'm familiar, but I am intrigued nonetheless. Last one here. Greatest of all time ultimate party tournament.
Again, gonna have to give a shout to a top 2 before deciding, but Ocean City, run by AJ Chikoski, has been a fantastic October escape to the beach for a few years now. I think my favorite, though, I would have to go with Mars. Combining camping and ultimate over 3 days and just you and your friends, it's pretty stellar, and probably take camping over the beach.
Ooh, I don't know if I can agree with you there. For the other viewers, where is Mars? Where do you get to camp?
Mars is in the lovely little town of Steubenville, Ohio, just outside of Pittsburgh. So really exotic location.
All right. I'll accept that. Though I am giving a shout out to my boy AJ. Love to see what he's doing, and I'm gonna go for the beach. But
definitely go to Ocean City if you haven't.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Unfortunately, we are out of time. But before we get out of here, any last shout outs you want to give?
Yeah, I can't get out of here without plugging my mom's food blog, Christina's Cucina, for any aspiring at-home chefs, particularly bakers. She's super active on Instagram, and go ahead and check her out.
That is amazing. I'm sure we will get that Instagram handle and website up on the show. That's great. Anyway, we do have to get out of here. I know I speak for the rest of the AUDL community. We're really looking forward to this DC-NY matchup coming up. But for now, back to Evan.
Cheers. Thanks, Matt.
Great stuff from Matt Smith and Steven Wartinbee. Love telling the stories of the guys that kept on grinding to make their first AUDL team. Steven Wartinbee was cut a bunch of times before he finally made the breeze in 2020, and that persistence has paid off. He played well, contributed to a bunch of the team's 10 wins a season ago. But that's enough about last year. Time to shift the focus to 2022. Hope you'll tune in Friday for the first game of the new season, totally free here on AUDL.tv, the Atlanta Hustle, and the Carolina Flyers. I'll be on the call alongside Charlie Eisenhood as we launch the second decade of the AUDL. Cannot wait. For now, though, my thanks go to everyone involved who contributed to our show tonight. Adam Ruffner, Daniel Cohen, Kevin Stuart, Matt Smith, Steven Wartinbee, and of course, thanks to our editor extraordinaire, Luke Johnson. My name's Evan Lepler. Thank you for watching the show tonight. Enjoy the ultimate this weekend, and I'll see you right back here next Wednesday.